Well, Terrie, let's get started by having you tell us a little bit about the essay you're going to be starting off the show for us today.
This essay originally appeared on Open Salon's website and was an editor's pick, which is just a thrill, in April of 2011. It's called Critical Thinking as Self-Defense. And I wrote it as sort of a reaction to my journey sorting through the conflicting information on parenting and the pressure to be a perfect parent, and just trying to sort through fact and fiction and folklore and mythology regarding that. And it discusses my childhood a little bit as a framework for coming back to critical thinking later on in life as a mom.
Well, that sounds great. Why don't you go ahead and get started, Terrie?
Okay. I'm pretty sure I was mentally ill until my 20s. I was raised in a patriarchal religious family that didn't value education and paired profound incuriosity with deep suspicion of anything even slightly unusual, such as spicy food. Educated people were threatening, and higher education was the realm of wealthy men, not for our impoverished, occasionally homeless family, and certainly not for a girl. At least that's how it all seemed to me. I learned early on that thoughtful questions tended to make my parents uncomfortable and even angry. I remember spending a large percentage of my childhood feeling angry, depressed, and completely powerless. In my teens, I started realizing that I might be smart, maybe even smart enough to go to college. People in authority outside of my family and of our religion treated me with respect. I realized that I didn't have to fulfill my dystopian destiny. I wasn't really trapped. I could choose a different life. So, of course, I rebelled, which felt great, but was an unthinking oppositional reaction to the mores of my childhood. It didn't feel so good when diametrically opposing my parents meant that I wasn't acting in my own best interest. Near the end of the self-destructive years, I returned to college. Anthropology blew my mind. This day, I remain deeply moved by the profound diversity of human experience around the globe. Exposure to myriad cultures that seem to usually function pretty well in their own fascinatingly exotic ways led me to embrace diversity. It turns out that spicy food, among other many esoteric delights, is awesome. Anthropology and higher education generally were incredibly empowering. The lens of ethnography has allowed me to view my own childhood as a product of outdated historical social norms and a specific religious culture. This long view removes most of the emotional toxicity that I had carried into young adulthood. Once I gained this perspective, I started thinking critically about my own life as ethnography. I started making better decisions and living a far more joyful and fulfilling life. I felt like I had ascended into disinfecting sunlight. This was the seed of critical thinking that began to germinate years later when I became a parent. I came to motherhood between generations. I knew that I wanted to be a different kind of parent than my own parents, but I wasn't sure where to look for guidance. People of my mother's generation seemed to disapprove of everything I was doing. Breastfeeding discreetly in public, breastfeeding a toddler, baby wearing, baby sign language, baby music, and movement classes, breastfeeding exclusively until 6 months, positive nonviolent discipline, babies sleeping on their backs, child car safety suits, bike helmets, and so on. Our pediatricians' recommendations were in direct conflict to their own methods, and their children had turned out just fine. Meanwhile, many stay-home mothers in my own age cohort were preaching a more intense parenting dogma. 2003 was the year my oldest child was born, and it was right in the middle of the surge of the attachment helicopter parenting paradigm here in the U.S. Every single facet of life with a child became a line of social demarcation and a marker of status. And this dynamic dominated in numerous parent subcultures in real life as well as online. No detail was too small to warrant judgment and render guilt. The pressure was intense and made it difficult for me to just enjoy being a new mom. A major parenting trend at the time was anti-vaccination. I first encountered anti-vaccination propaganda when I was already driving myself crazy, worrying about how I diapered, if diapering itself was a terrible mistake, imaginary toxins in my food that were poisoning my breast milk, the provenance of the fibers in my baby's clothes, and the fact that I drank 1 cup of ethically grown, fair trade, dark roast coffee every day, even though I was breastfeeding. More than anything else, anti-vaccination was what took me into becoming a more skeptical, critical thinker because it was the one major tenet of the dominant subculture that inflicted the greatest level of cognitive dissonance. I couldn't believe that millions of medical professionals, including 2 personal friends who are medical doctors, were knowingly harming their own children. It just didn't make sense to me, so I tried to figure out what was going on. I had already been inundated with anti-vaccine propaganda, so I looked for counter-arguments from the other side. I found the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, which led me to Science-Based Medicine blog, which has an extensive wealth of information about vaccinations, including links to primary sources about evidence of safety. This is where I started learning how to sort out credible research from anecdotes. This is also where I first learned about Andrew Wakefield's despicable shenanigans that sparked the current vaccine rejection trend. Learning how to find credible information about divisive parenting topics has helped me to chart a more rational course through emotionally treacherous waters. Not that I get it right all the time, not even close, but attempting to inform my decisions with credible, peer-reviewed science is reassuring. It also means that my ongoing evolution as a parent is organic. I'm doing my own imperfect best, and in a lovely example of confirmation bias, my children are thriving. Critical thinking helps me cut through the noise and find a path to decent parenting, especially when other parents pile on. Instead of feeling terrified and insecure about every imaginable facet of parenting, I can relax and simply enjoy my bright, laughing children. I have emerged into sunlight again.